Alright guys, as promised, Project Big Ben, Part 2, we're back. And you guys keep wanting to see a full day of eating, so we're going to do a full day of eating. I warn you, it's probably going to be pretty boring, but it's going to be a lot of food. So we're going to start off, we have Ezekiel Muffins. I love these because they're about 2 bites each, and they have about 40 grams of carbs, so that makes it super easy. We've got 60 grams of cream of rice. I choose cream of rice on my high carb days because it has no fat. I prefer oats, but oats have about 2.5 grams of fat per serving. And on the high carb days where we're taking in upwards of 900 grams of carbs a day, you don't want that much fat because the goal is to teach your body to use carbs as your fuel source on that day and to store the extra amino acids as fuel, not the fat. So that's why we try to minimize fat as much as possible on off days. Plus cream of rice, like the difference is minor. And then the good old egg whites again because we want that fat-free source of protein. In the oven we got some potatoes, we've got a banana, and that's about it. So I'm gonna start cooking. So when I make my cream of rice, I like to make it with a little less water than recommended. That way comes out a little bit thicker, it feels a little bit more substantial. Otherwise it kind of feels like you're eating, I don't know, the texture is not the best. Measure out the egg whites, measure out everything actually, which gets really old, but I think it's something that's important. Because for me, I have a tendency to undereat, some people have a tendency to overeat. No matter what the case may be, you want to get it as close and as consistent as possible. It doesn't matter if you're exactly right on with your numbers, but it does matter if from month to month, week to week, year to year, you're consistent with how you're measuring, with how you're portioning your foods, with how much you're eating in one direction or another. Because if you're not consistent, and you can't really have a plan, you can't really make those small changes we talk about in Unfuck Your Program because you don't know what's going on. I apologize about these lights, guys. I'm going to turn them off real quick. Hopefully that's better and not worse. So it's very important that you're consistent when you're doing these things or you don't really know what's going on. It's the same with your training. If you're bouncing program and you're not making notes and you're not changing things methodically, you don't know what's going on with your body. And that's a very, very important thing to learn no matter what your pursuit is, whether you're pursuing a pro carb, which is my next immediate goal, whether you're pursuing a certain number on your lifts, no matter what type of strength development you're after, consistency is always going to be the number one thing. So that's meal one. We've got about 30 grams of protein and about 125 grams of carbs. Now it's time to eat it. All right, guys, it's about 3 hours later, and we're prepping meal number 2. So this meal is my pre-workout meal because I usually like to train in the middle of the day. I have that freedom in terms of my schedule and flexibility and everything, so I take advantage of it. So meal number 2 for me is protein pancakes, just because that's what I like. It's what sits comfortably in my stomach. I think that's extremely important when you're talking about pre-workout meals. More than anything else, more than the macros you get, more than the amounts. I think that you feel good for training is absolutely paramount. So that's really my priority when I'm looking at what foods I choose for pre-workout. I do still follow the macro plan, obviously, that Justin gives me. So my amounts are kind of predetermined. And honestly, I would prefer, I think, a few less carbs and more protein and fats pre-training. But because today is a high day, we're sticking with that about 30 grams of protein and 125 grams of carbs per meal. So that's what I'm shooting for here. So I make my pancakes out of spelted flour or oat flour and coconut flour, a little mixture of those, plus obviously protein powder. Lately I've been mixing in some pumpkin just for the taste, which I really like. Again, none of that's strictly necessary. Pumpkin is not exactly a get big food, but it tastes good, and so I go with it, especially because I still have like 5 pounds of pumpkin flavored protein left over from the holidays from True Nutrition. So gotta use that something. So the other really important thing you want to remember about pre-workout nutrition is the timing. Okay, so if you're not eating within, say, 3 hours of your training, you're going to be really hungry during training. It's not going to be productive because you're worried about being hungry. Plus, training at a fastest stage, if you're trying to gain muscle, not a good look. On the other hand, if you're too full when you go into train, and then you're going to feel bloated and sluggish, and again, not a good look. The quality of your training, very, very important if you want to see optimal gains. So, personally, I like about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And keep in mind that I do have an intra-workout that I'm drinking during my training to kind of keep me fueled during that time as well. So I'm not going too long without food. Now, if I were dieting, it might be a different story. I would probably avoid that just because I don't usually feel hungry during training. I feel pretty in the zone and amped up and just forget about all that stuff. So I would prefer to save the calories for after my training, keep me satiated for a little while longer. But the important thing is to do what makes you feel the best, not what makes me feel the best, not what makes somebody else feel the best. And then one last thing you might want to consider with your pre-workout is the timing of your pre-workout meal with your pre-workout supplements. So if you take something milder, something like a premium from Granite or a Vasoblitz from Build Fast formula, then you can be a little bit more flexible with timing because they're not super high on the stimulants. But if you're taking something more extreme like high stim, then you need to be a little bit careful because if you take those on an empty stomach, you're going to get the jitters, you're not going to feel good, it's going to be a bad look. If you take those with some food, it's a little bit easier to tolerate. Personally, I like to do a non-stim pre-workout, so I stick with the Vasoblitz. I have some coffee, French press of course. Have some coffee while I'm eating my pre-workout meal, and that keeps me pretty well fueled throughout my training, and it doesn't overdo it, right? Like I don't feel worn out or dead by the end of training because I've been overstimulated and training really hard. I feel like I've got a good balance there. And there's the meal. I know it looks like a lot, but a lot of the volume is because of the pumpkin. Pumpkin's not very calorically dense, so you have to eat a lot of it, but it's also not very filling, so that's okay. All right, finished the training, hard as fuck. I'll talk about that in a different video. During my training, I had 2 scoops of Granite Recovery Factor, so that's about 50 grams of carbs. It's actually maybe a little bit less than that. It's about 40 grams of carbs, 15 grams of amino acids. We're gonna hit 40 grams of protein, some chicken breast we got in the pot. We've got 200 grams of Japanese sweet potatoes. So I really like those because they taste good as hell, and they have more carbs than a regular just sweet potato or whatever. They're a little bit more calorically dense. So not a whole lot, but every little bit counts when you're trying to bulk up. We've also got 100 grams of rice cooking up. So this is going to be about 150 grams of carbs in this meal. And 40 grams of protein, like I mentioned. Again, we're keeping the fats very, very low post-workout. We want to soak up all that protein. We want to soak up all those carbs. We want to get recovered as fast as we possibly can. So that's the goal here. So there it is. Time to eat. All right, guys. This is meal number 4, not counting the intra-workout. We're just basically doing the same thing as breakfast. More cream of rice, fewer potatoes. I'm trying to keep my potassium down a little bit. We got the Ezekiel Muffin, cream of rice with some bananas, some egg whites with barbecue sauce. Again, sticking with that 125 grams of carbs, 30-ish grams of protein. It's only been 90 minutes since my last meal. I'm typically not really hungry after training, like half hour after training. I gotta force that meal down. But then I get really hungry about 2 hours later. So that's where we are now. Gonna pound this one down, and then still got 2 to go. It's a beast. Gotta get big though. All right, guys. Last meal of the day. This is a cheat meal. I'm not a huge fan of cheat meals. I don't think that they're tough. They're tough for me. I prefer to eat healthy food, but at the same time, you can only get so many calories out of a healthy meal, and we're really trying to up those calories so we can fill out this weight class. So I'm just going to go to town on this rotisserie chicken. I took the skin off. You can see there's still some fat on there, but took most of it off, and I'm just going to eat as much as I can. So wish me luck, and I will show you what remains when I have finished. Not going to lie, I ate it all. Can't really move right now, but worth. Gotta get big, guys. Gotta get big. So I personally thought this video was kind of boring, but lots and lots of people wanted to see a full day of eating. So I tried to deliver. I tried my best. If you have suggestions for how I can improve, I'm not getting a professional photographer in my house to follow me around while I eat, so it's kind of out of the question. But if you have other suggestions, then please leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to fulfill your expectations.